The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
I'm Lisa Law. I've traveled the world to seek spiritual knowledge, to visit sacred places, and to find inner peace. Where we go and what we do on our journey is important. So are the people we meet along the way, the ones who support us, inspire us, and help us be more positive. I want you to meet these special people. So welcome to the Sharing Room. Hi everyone, it's my pleasure to welcome my dad, Mike Beebe, to the Sharing Room today. My dad and I both had a unique experience growing up. We grew up in the ski industry. My grandparents, Charlie and Lucie Beebe, started Temple Mountain Ski Area in Peterborough in 1937, and my dad's written a book recently called My Cathedral, Temple Mountain, chronicling our story in the ski business. So welcome, Dad.
Thank you for having me.
It's nice to have you here.
Great.
So what made you write the book?
Well, a number of different things. You know, we each live out a story, some perhaps more interesting than others, but it's a series of experiences, and if you don't write it down and somehow record it, then people won't know in the future what happened. It's the history gets lost, and I wrote it in part because of your kids who ski, ride on high-speed quad chairlifts, and they don't know anything about riding rope tow or other surface lifts or going to a bathroom in an unheated outhouse or any of those experiences.
That was still around in my day.
Talk about the good old days, and
So what was it like? It was fun to work on the book with you, and also to talk about the stories of the early days, because there was a lot that even I didn't know. And what came across to me was how hardy the people were back in the early days of skiing. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, of course. The earliest skiing was you had to be self-propelled. Before there were what we call downhill skiing, which started really in the early 1930s because of ski lifts and rope tows. People before that time had to climb if they wanted to ski down. So for probably 7,000 years, starting in the Scandinavian countries, people have been skiing, but it's been self-propelled, what we call ski touring or cross-country skiing. And the downhill or the alpine skiing is a fairly recent thing. So yeah, people had to be rugged to do that. And then even in the early days of skiing, for example, my parents couldn't buy some of the road frontage along Route 101 in Peterborough, so the ski lodge was almost a half a mile from the parking lot and up quite a hill, and so people had to climb and hike to the base of the ski tows. And
then to operate the ski area, you had to carry in all of the supplies from the road, the gas for the engine and the rope tow, and you talk in the book about having to go break the ice on the well to get water out of the well. And
oh yeah, the cabins, we talk about, rustic wood frame cabins with wood stoves, and perhaps fancier ones had a fireplace of some kind, and there was no running water and then no electricity, and so if you needed water you had to go and fetch it from a well and walk through deep snow to get there. Walking in from the parking lot, you had to carry all the supplies in backpacks and gas cans, 5-gallon gas cans and batteries and all the rest of it. And so everybody was rugged. Everybody put up with a lot of hardship, to go skiing. But
Well, and there
You
was
know,
no modern grooming equipment like we have now.
oh, well, yes, that's true. People, you'd break out the snow by skiing through it, and then we had a packing crew. You go to the top of the hill, and then everybody would sidestep down the hill, and you do that on every slope and trail. It was a lot of work. And then having to keep when the snow was soft, people would fall and make what we called sitz marks or bathtubs, or
Yeah,
some
there's
more
a really
like
cute picture of Oma, Lucy.
right, and so people would have to pack that out. Then the rope tow line got very difficult to ride because of all the particularly after fresh snow, there would be lots of bumps, and it was like riding. Well, it was like water skiing on the ocean when it's very rough.
Well, I
big
can tell you as a
rollers.
little kid riding the rope tow, the rope, you get launched off one bump, and then you'd be holding on and you'd be lifted along for a while until you get to the next
Right.
bump.
Yep.
And so for a little kid, it could be scary or it could be fun once you got used to it.
Right.
It was as much fun going up as it was going down, except for
Yeah,
what it
well,
did
like
to your gloves.
you, like me and my siblings, we all started skiing at about age 2, and it didn't take too long to learn the basics as a little kid, and then start riding the rope tow on your own, and before you know it, up and down, up and down, up and down, and
Well,
I
and
did,
for me, it was fun because you built our house right on the side of the mountain. So when we wanted to go skiing, we just skied out our front door, and when we wanted to come home, we just caught a lift home. So it was a
yep,
really fun way to grow up.
right. Yeah, we lived very close to nature year round, and there's a lot of backstories to running a ski area. For example, if you go by Temple Mountain now, which is on the height of the land about 5 miles east of Peterborough, it's pretty much grown up. You can see a kind of a ghost of where the trails were, but um, it's nature's way of just reclaiming things. And so old pastures in a farm, or fields, or
Well,
ski
and you didn't
trails.
have a tractor to do all that cutting of all that brush every year. You did that by hand. You want to tell them what that was like? Some of the
Well, that
creatures
was
you encountered?
yeah, it was. I learned how to operate a sigh. Most people you say, "What's a sigh?" Well, it's a grim reaper. It has this big kind of crooked-handled wooden thing with a big blade on it, and you just kind of sigh the grass, and you had to cut all the brush on all the trails. Otherwise, it would stick up through the snow, and people couldn't ski. And then, if you left it there for 2 or 3 years,
You get a little
suddenly you wouldn't
sapling.
have a trail anymore. So every fall after the growing season, usually about the 15th of August onward, we'd spend the better part of a month.
I luckily got out of that duty. I don't know. I was strong,
No,
but you
you
didn't
missed
make
out
me
on
do
that
that.
part. Well, by then we had gas-powered saws and size, and also four-wheel drive tractors with brush hogs. So that was a saving grace. But one of the hazards of sighing was stepping on ground bees,
Yeah,
and
it used to happen
was
a lot.
quite a. Some years were worse than others, but every year we'd plan on getting stung. That was part of the deal.
Well, and then you came up with a scheme to get a couple of baby billy goats because you thought they'd eat down the brush on
Oh yeah,
the
well,
mountain.
I grew up in Hollis on a farm, and we had some goats among other things, and they're very interesting animals, very mischievous.
Oh yeah.
But we thought that we'd have 2 goats and stake them out on the ski trails, and they'd just,
They wanted no
eat the
part
brush,
of
and then we'd move, and the goat stake, and but it didn't work too well. The goats get all tangled up, and they'd scream and yell, and knock over the water, and if you let them loose, they'd run right over to the house and eat all the plant life around the house that I wanted to keep.
that. Well, and on busy days at the ski area, sometimes the goats would get loose, and their favorite thing was to jump from car to car across the
Oh,
the hoods
yes.
of all
More
the
than
cars
once.
in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Back then, people took those little dents in their cars a lot better than they would nowadays.
Yeah, so it looked like, somebody taking a ball-peen hammer and kind of beat on the
Well,
hood
and the
or
ski
the
patrol would
roof.
get so upset they'd try and catch them, and the goats would run away. And so
Oh, yes.
my sister and I would get the SOS, and we'd have to go capture the goats.
Right.
Usually, all it took was a candy bar or a bag of potato chips, and they'd
Yep.
follow you anywhere.
Right. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So there's a lot of sort of backstories to running a ski area and cutting the brush on all the ski trails, and it was all part of the.
Well, and you liken the grooming part to snow farming. Would you like to tell them about how all the equipment evolved?
Well, in the beginning, all the so-called grooming, packing of snow was done by manual labor. And we had a bunch of high school kids that, many generations of people worked at Temple. I had over 120 people working for me in a typical season.
Well, and some of them were multi-generation too.
Yes, oh yeah,
which
there
was
were
fun.
multiple, 3 or
And
4
they
generations.
came back year after year after year.
Yep. So that was rugged work, and then we started using ski-doos, snow machines, Alpine. There was a big wide track snowmobile with a single ski that we used to pack the snow, and then eventually snow grooming tractors. And it's called snow farming because most of the tractors and the implements came from adapting agricultural things. So nowadays, for example, they have very fancy hydrostatically driven snowcat snow grooming tractors, and they have like a rotary tiller on the back. It's not unlike the tiller that's used for, somebody might use in a garden, but a much larger, 12,
Yeah, they're
14
huge.
feet wide. And it kind of grooms up the
And that's
frozen
done
snow
mostly
and
overnight.
ice. Yeah, they have lots of lights, and there's a whole crew that works, in the evening hours, the early. If you go by a place like, Cannon Mountain, after dark, you see these
See the
lights up on the
headlights.
mountain. What is that all about? Well,
It's not a
that's
UFO.
those are the grooming tractors. Yeah.
So people might not realize that Temple Mountain and skiing started in this area in New England as one of the very first ski areas. And
That's right. My parents were true ski pioneers. My father learned to ski when he was a student at Bowdoin College in Brunswick, Maine, from several Norwegian roommates, and he developed a great passion for skiing. He met his wife, Lucy, who grew up in Germany, and they were married, and in fact, they went on a skiing honeymoon in St. Anton over in Austria. And then they came back here, and it was about the time that Woodstock, Vermont had a rope tow in 1934, and that really stimulated
that
a
was the
great
first
deal of
uphill
interest.
transportation in North America for skiing.
Well, there was one, I guess, that predated that in Quebec, but that's kind of what launched the interest. And so before you knew it, people that had a side hill somewhere and an old Ford truck engine or a tractor and some rope, they were in the ski business. And so my parents, lived down in Wellesley, Mass. My grandfather owned a farm, summer farm in Hollis, and my parents moved to Hollis, and that's where I grew up. And
You went to Nashua High?
yeah, I went to Nashua High School, and was on the ski team. There was a woman ski coach named Nancy Hendricks from Litchfield, and she was, I think, a history teacher, but was a woman ski coach, and we skied 4 events. We, it was jumping, cross country, downhill racing, and slalom, which is skiing through gates. And interestingly, at the same time, the Nashua Snowcat ski team started. It was an inter-club ski team, and I was a member of that. And we went skiing around New England. In fact, I still ski with some of the people, including Ken Lozo.
Yeah,
Uh,
you see him at Ski Racing Masters still?
right. I still ski race in New England Masters. And
So was it common for people to jump, or was that something that you enjoyed? Would any of the girls have been on the jumping team too?
well, there weren't when we first started the ski team. There wasn't a girls' team. Now there's all kinds of
Oh, there was.
women's
Oh,
teams, but it was kind of a male thing. And I went to UNH and I was skied 4 events and had a ski coach, Ed Blood, who was a former U.S. Olympic team skier. And,
so what was it that when you graduated from college, what was it that made you want to go and run the ski area and raise us there?
well, of course, I grew up in the ski business and started skiing at about age 2. And so I was just immersed in it. And my parents ran the ski area initially as kind of a hobby, a weekend thing, but it kind of evolved over time. And then the ski industry got more sophisticated as it grew, and I decided to make a living at it. So after going to UNH and getting a degree in business, I started running the ski area, and then I decided to build a house there and raise a family. And
Well, and it's funny, the story, the day I was born, you were up on a tower installing it, a main T-bar lift.
that's
And
right,
so
in the
anyone who
fall.
skied at Temple would see my name and my birth date on that tower.
Right.
And so you brought me home to the candy room in the lodge because you hadn't built the house because you're putting all those towers in.
Yeah, we were
So,
putting in a ski lift at the time, a T-bar, and yeah, was busy up there working on that and wondering what was going on with.
well, and then Mom's water broke and she had to hike up to come get you
Right.
to take her to the hospital.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So that's very interesting. Well, those are all these stories, and how really neat.
well, and there was a story about you too, the day you were born, right? A ski story.
Yeah, I was born January 11th, 1942, and it was a weekend, and it was very, very cold, and my father could not get the main rope tow running until about noontime, and I guess winter was, and all that cold weather, and so I don't know. So we have a kind of a connection to the ski area. Yep.
Many connections.
Oh yes. Yeah.
When you call it My Cathedral, Temple Mountain, and it's kind of interesting, the name Temple, and
Right.
there are now some Buddhist monks that live on the mountain, and I was told they were attracted to it because of the name Temple.
Right.
So,
Well, Temple, I don't know. There's Temple, New Hampshire, and about half the ski area was in Temple, the other half in Peterborough, and Temple Mountain is actually a 5-mile long ridge that runs north-south and starts down in Sharon, and there's a wonderful skyline hiking trail, the Warpack Trail.
we used to do annual foliage hikes every year. Those were always
Right.
good memories.
Yeah.
It started on your shoulders, and then we'd get big enough to walk it ourselves.
Yep.
It's fun.
Yeah, that was an annual thing, and my mother being German, she'd have a bunch of German friends from the greater Boston area that go on this foliage hike, and then we'd have all kinds of apple kuchen and delicious
She was a great
desserts in
hostess.
the lodge afterwards.
So if people go there now, there's a bench up on the top of the mountain that memorializes Charlie and Lucie.
Yep.
And so that's part of why that's up there, is because of that love they had of that hike and the whole mountain.
Right. But the whole cathedral, there's a lot of different ways to think of cathedrals. I've been all over Europe and been in cathedrals like Notre Dame and Chartres, for example, and they're beautiful
St.
structures.
Peter's in Rome.
St. Peter's in Rome, and but I was immersed in nature, being on a farm, and then growing up the ski area, and we also spent summers canoe camping initially on Winnipesaukee, and then we owned an 8-acre island for 35 years on the island at Winnipesaukee, and so we just immersed in nature, and
Well, and we were at the whims of Mother Nature. You know, she'd send us a beautiful snow, and then before the weekend would come, it would rain, or the temperatures would plummet, or something would happen. And so there was a lot of joy. The joyous part was sharing it with other people for me, and all the different relationships we had. But then there was a lot of heartache, especially with a winter like last year. And in 1980, I remember I was ski racing for Conval at that point, and we only had races at the mountains where they made snow.
right.
And Temple only opened, you said, 6 days that year.
Yes. Yep.
So, yeah. So those years were a bit rough.
Oh,
But I
absolutely.
have to say, for me, it taught me resilience, and that I have inner resources. And it was funny. I always think about. My church has always been the church of the great outdoors, and I can remember wanting to go to Sunday school because one of my friends' fathers was a minister. And so I went to Sunday school a few times, and I'm like, I like my cathedral, Temple Mountain. I
Right.
like being out there in
Yeah.
nature and connecting with the beauty of nature.
Well, before human beings got all sophisticated and started living in cities and whatever, most people slept on the ground outside under the stars and were very tied to the earth. I mean, the word human and humus, we come from the earth. And, in fact, my wife and I study cosmology, study of the universe at Riviera University. We take a course, and very fascinating. But we all come from stardust. And so
Well, and you feel that oneness on
right,
the mountain.
yeah,
And you can't live at the very tippy top of the mountain, but it gives you a perspective of everything happening in your life that you leave behind in the valley. I wonder if that's part of the love of skiing is how, you're out in nature and the beauty, and you're up high, and it's really easy to leave your troubles behind on those ski days.
right. Well, for example, last Saturday I was at the New England Masters, and we happened to be at Cannon Mountain. It was a glorious day, and that's the kind of a mountain that's either awesome or awful. I recall skiing with you when
Yeah,
it
we
was
had another day.
22 below zero one day. We were up
yeah.
there, and
I had
that
two
was awful.
whole ski outfits. I think we took maybe 6 runs, but we
Right.
did it.
But
Yeah.
that's the deal. Nature, life is a package deal. There's all kinds of goody, happy, wonderful, beautiful sunrises and sunsets and glorious experiences communing with nature, and then there's some absolutely nasty and gnarly stuff, and it's all part of the deal. And if you can live through all of it, it's all a very spiritual thing. We're all spiritual creatures, and we're all
Yeah, we lose our
connected,
rhythm, our
Yeah.
our nature, our inner nature. As we get busy, we forget that we are part of nature. And
yeah,
still,
we're,
for me, the reset is to go outside. And luckily, here in Nashua, we have some beautiful walking trails, and the studio's right near Mines Falls, and that's a really beautiful place.
absolutely.
And we're lucky to have those resources and live in such a beautiful place.
So I was thinking going up the upper chairlift at Cannon Mountain and listening to the silence and the cold air and how clear and clean it is, and looking at the forest and how things change, and you get up on top and the little scrubby trees, and they're covered with
white,
6 or 8 inches of
looks like
hoarfrost,
frosting.
and yeah, it's like a giant wedding cake. And then you look around over at Lafayette and everything, and
Yeah, it's
what's
just
there to hate
beautiful.
about this place?
Yeah.
This is, if you're paying attention, nature is just everywhere, and you take it in, and it replenishes your batteries. And people that don't, nowadays, for example, we have all kinds of wonderful high-tech, comfortable clothing,
Yep.
dress in layers and things, and you can go out in some pretty darn gnarly kind of weather situations and be comfortable.
And the equipment's so much easier to ski on nowadays, too.
Oh, absolutely. I have a
You
little
do talk
short.
about the chronicling of the ski equipment and all of the different things we've talked about in your book. If people are interested in your book, where can they get a copy?
Well, the Toadstool bookstores handle it, but you can go online. There's TempleMountainSkiing.com, and you can order books through the website. And
There's also a Facebook page, Temple Mountain Skiing,
yeah,
that people can follow and like and share their stories about Temple Mountain. Because that's one
right.
of the fun things about you writing the book is it brings everyone forward with all of their memories of skiing in this area and their connections with Temple Mountain.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
was
really
over
fun.
in Jaffrey last Friday night. A fellow that was on our ski patrol for 24 years, the Jaffrey Chamber of Commerce honored him as, Man of the Year, and so we went over there, and there were several hundred people at the meeting, and
It's fun.
he got to tell some stories about Temple, and also working on the Jaffrey Outing Club and building a rope tow right by the Conant High School at one point. And,
It's fun.
there's, like I said earlier, that each one of us have a story, and I could have written a book, about this thick if you
We could have
really
just
got
one
into
of
the
pictures, just plain
just the
pictures.
people and
And yeah.
the customers and the employees, the great story. So it's a happy business to be in. People came in the parking lot expecting to have a good time, and they had a smile on their face. And it's not like running a garage where somebody's
You have
coming
bad
in.
news for them.
Bad news, and it's going to cost you money, and your car's
Yeah.
needs to be fixed. And so, or being a dentist, is not exactly a fun kind of a job to be in, and particularly if you're fixing cavities and things like that. But
Well, luckily, skiing
skiing
is a
was
lot more fun.
a lot more enjoyable.
Well, I thank you for being here. The time went by really quickly, and
Right.
thank you everyone for joining us. I hope you come back again to the sharing room. Take care. I'm Lisa Law. I've traveled the world to seek spiritual knowledge, to visit sacred places, and to find inner peace. Where we go and what we do on our journey is important. So are the people we meet along the way, the ones who support us, inspire us, and help us be more positive. I want you to meet these special people. So welcome to the sharing room.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.